The Carolina Hurricanes won on Sunday night on the back of the very clutch special teams versus the Blackhawks. That plus much more on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, and a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Zach Martin. Thank you to the everydayer for making this podcast your first listen of the day. For this episode, going to talk about what the biggest takeaway was for the Hurricanes against the Chicago Blackhawks on Sunday night to get their 52nd win of the season on the back of a very, very great night for the special teams. Also going to be answering some questions for the first ever mailbag edition of the show. And then also kind of looking at the playoff scenarios with one game left for the Hurricanes and, of course, the New York Rangers, who lead the Metro Division. But before getting to all of that, today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. So the Carolina Hurricanes play the Chicago Blackhawks on Sunday night at the United Center in the Windy City. The Hurricanes did come out on top of that with a 4-2 win, scoring 3 goals in the third period. And it was on the back of a very, very clutch Seth Jarvis getting 2 goals for the Carolina Hurricanes in this one pretty late in the third period. Up to that point, though, for the most part, it was all Blackhawks in terms of the power play. They had like 3 power plays before the Hurricanes even saw their first one, and luckily the penalty kill unit proving why they're the best penalty kill in the league and shut down the Blackhawks, going 3 for 3 on the night. At this point, it's almost like the penalty kill should just be called the power kill, because just like their power play is very good, and it just seems like no matter what really happens, the Hurricanes can get penalized a million times, and the other team only gets like 1 or 2. They somehow find a way to just shut down and do their business as they always do. And that's just basically what it was for the Hurricanes tonight. Very odd situation where Pyotr Kochetkov even got a penalty for tripping, even though he kind of initially made the poke save, and then, Anthony Ciu kind of just like flipped over him, but they still called a tripping penalty, which was very, very odd to say the least. I know a lot of fans are not really happy about that, but luckily, the penalty kill did their job and shut them down. And all that good stuff, like I said, going 3 for 3 on the night on the penalty kill. And then the Hurricanes later on in the third period got a very timely power play opportunity, getting their first one after Alex Vlasic got an interference call, and then not too much later, Seth Jarvis gets his 32nd of the year first power play goal. That gives the Hurricanes a chance to tie the game up 2-2. And then about 10 minutes later in the period, Hurricanes get another opportunity with Seth Jones getting a penalty for the Blackhawks on a cross-check after hitting Sebastian Aho from behind. And then Seth Jarvis gets his 33rd of the season and his second power play goal of the night to give the Hurricanes a lead. And then 17:54 into the period, Jake Guentzel scores the goal, ices it 4-2, and the Hurricanes come and get their 52nd win of the season. And you love to see it for the Hurricanes. And at that point, it's actually their 5th straight win dating back to April 5th against the Washington Capitals. Overall, it was a very interesting game because the Blackhawks scored. It was like 1-0 on their one shot. Frank Nazar, the third AHL debut. It always comes out to where the Hurricanes will let like a guy who's making his debut score a goal in their first game. It's just like you can almost like know it's going to happen. But it is what it is. They scored. Hurricanes luckily tied it up, and then later on just put the foot on the gas, scored 3 goals in the third period, wins it 4-2. And like I said, just the way you look at how they had 34 shots compared to the Blackhawks 16 and come out with a 2 for 3 power play. And once again, showing why their power play unit's third in the league, and still the Hurricanes are the only team to have a top 3 penalty kill and a top 3 power play. No other team has them, since the Hurricanes are first on the penalty kill and third on the power play. There's really not much more you can ask for the Hurricanes, just the fact that they're able to go night in and night out. Like, there's one point in the season, they had a streak of like 17, 18 games into the season. I think it was 18, where it was 18 straight games where they had less power plays compared to the other team, which it's still mind-boggling for a lot of people. Yeah, it's not – there's no ill intent. It's not on purpose. It's just – it's one of those things where it just doesn't make any sense. Like, how can the Hurricanes, the way they play, have more penalty kills than power plays? You would think for a team like Carolina, who's good on the back check, good on the forward check, always bringing pressure, always making teams make mistakes, grinding you out almost every game, rolling 4 lines, and somehow just is able to get more penalties. It still makes no sense, and it's just is what it is. It's almost like a yearly thing, and that's where we're kind of at this point. It's like you kind of just know that it's going to happen, that the Hurricanes aren't going to get a whole lot of power plays. And like I said, especially up to that point, it was like 45 minutes into the game before the Carolina Hurricanes even got their first power play. Like, there's no real way you can say that it's possible for one team to go 45 minutes straight and not have a penalty, but the other team, who's known for their style of play, who could draw more penalties, somehow gets none in 45 minutes. It's just one of those things where it's like you kind of almost wish there's a study done in the NHL for the fact that you look at the Carolina Hurricanes and they feel like they're always consistently on the power kill and on the penalty kill. And that's kind of why you see it year in and year out, how they're always a top 5, top 3 penalty kill unit, because they do it so many times. Last year, they even finished first place last year in the penalty kill. And this year looks like they're going to do it again. And last year they were in the 90% range. It's just, yeah, it's good that you kind of get used to being really good at the penalty kill, but at the same time, it's like, man, I don't think you want to be on the penalty kill all the time, but Hurricanes hockey. I don't know what more I can tell you on that one, but if you're Rod Brind'amour, you'll take that. You'll take that any day of the week. When you go 3 for 3 on the penalty kill, you go 2 for 3 on the power play. You're basically, in my estimation, it's not really a stat, but I would consider it a stat if you ask me. And it's what's your overall like special team stat? Like, you know how you have the plus minus for guys on even strength and stuff like that. For me, it's kind of like, I would even go to say it's what is your plus minus for your special teams? Like, did you kill 3 penalties and also not score any? Then for me, that's like, you're kind of like a negative, or you're at even, sorry. Or like, say you've killed 3 and scored 1, then you're like a +1 or something like that. And in terms of this, like, you go 3 for 3, you score 2 power play goals. For me, you're a +5. You're a +5 on your special teams. Because if you really think about it, you could have gone almost 6 for 6, 3 power play goals, 3 penalty kill, like 3 for 3 on the penalty kill. That's, for me, that would be a +6, because you shut them down all 3 attempts against you, and you scored all 3 attempts. So tonight, I would say the special teams overall for the Hurricanes was a +5. Score 2 power play goals, you killed 3. You'll take that any day of the week. And that might be a stat I might just use more often, just because it's kind of a new fun thing, just to be able to say, okay, how are your special teams? Were they minus? Were they even? Were they plus? That might be a new thing for next season, to do a little how are we looking in terms of the special teams plus minus. And right now, tonight on Sunday night against the Blackhawks, +5. Take it any day of the week. And the fact that you got Seth Jarvis scoring 2 goals, both on the power play. The last one, it was there was like barely late. Like when the penalty kill expired, there was like 6 seconds left in the game. So you could see it was like 2 for 2 for the Hurricanes at that point. But overall, you'll take it. You're happy with it. The Hurricanes absolutely showed out on the special teams. Like I said, going perfect. Win 4-2 just on the back of that alone, and all that great stuff. So we are going to start the mailbag segment. Before we get into that, we're going to go to just a little quick break, and we'll be right back for the segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Motors Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So we're now going to the official first ever mailbag questions with me at the helm of this podcast. Thank you to everyone who sent out your questions. Really hoping to make this a weekly thing, or make this a more occurring type segment where answering your questions and everything you send in. So either if you do it through X, if you send it through Instagram or Facebook, and all that good stuff, I would love to answer your guys' questions. And even if you have questions from YouTube, if you drop them in the comment section below, and I might just read them for the mailbag whenever we get a chance to do the next one. But it's a big thank you to everyone who's done it. Thank you to the everydayer who is also sending your questions if you sent one in. So this one's from Kitty Bartlett. She sent a couple in, actually. She's a GSF_Spanish on Twitter. Will Rod Brind'amour stick with the goalie rotation in the playoffs or go with one dedicated starter? If the latter, who gets the nod? Both Freddie and Peter Tkachuk have had excellent. Thank you, Kay, for sending your first question. Yes, both goalies have been absolutely phenomenal so far this year. Peter Tkachuk on Sunday night got his 23rd win of the season. Frederik Andersen been back. He's 9-1-0. In terms of you're looking at the playoffs, usually for the most part, you see teams go with like one dedicated goalie. You saw it last year with the Florida Panthers, and they used Sergei Bobrovsky for the most part. I know last year the Hurricanes pretty much rode Frederik Andersen almost the entire playoffs. Also with that, too, I know when I was on the Monday edition of Locked On NHL, Gil Martin, the host on the Monday show, actually asked me that same question on there when I was on there, when I recorded with them, which will be out around Monday afternoon. If you want to go check that out that segment with me on there with him, I'll bring it up on this part on the show as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Brind'amour does go with a one goalie to start out, which in my estimation is going to be Frederik Andersen, just the way he's come back, the way he's played since he's come back. Like I said, 9-1-0 since coming back from the blood clotting issue, missing over 40-something games, over I think it was like 45 games. Coming back and just playing lights out hockey. I would say game one starter is probably going to be him. And then depending on if they want to ride the hot hand, they could do it. Or I wouldn't be shocked if he goes with a rotation. And I really wouldn't blame him if he did go with a rotation, because it seems like since Frederik Andersen has been back, they've been kind of doing that. Every game they've been just rotating the goalies in and everyone's staying fresh. And that's why you're seeing the Hurricanes winning as much as they're still doing it. They're out 5-game winning streak, since the Washington Capitals game on Friday a couple weeks ago, after they're back on the second half of back-to-back to start off the month of April and ripped off 5 in a row. I could see them go with the rotation if they really wanted to as well. Or same thing I told Gil for that show, and it's that you could go with one option. You can go with one of those options where you could go with one goalie, or you could go with a rotation, and then maybe at some point you switch the tactics and you go to the other thing. Let's say Rod Brind'amour goes with one goalie, and it's Frederik Andersen. Then let's say he struggles for a game or two. Okay, here comes throw Pierre Tkachuk in. Maybe he gets hot and they ride with him a little bit. Or It's like, they give Frederick Anderson a night off. Peter Kochetkov comes in, and then Frederick Anderson's back for the next game, and maybe they start doing a flip-flop. Or they start doing like a rotation thing, and maybe one goalie has a really great game where he hits a shutout or just plays a phenomenal game where he gives up one goal and he saved like 35, 40 shots. Hopefully they don't have to do it for the Hurricanes, because the Hurricanes are a team that doesn't really give up a whole lot of shots. But let's say, they have a great game. Like, okay, we'd love that game. Let's see them do it again, and maybe they could switch up to a one goalie system. So I would be surprised if Rod Brind'amour goes with one of those and rides that one, or he switches it up halfway through, or maybe just sticks with the rotation and just go from there. So there's a lot of options that Brind'amour could go with in the playoffs. Wouldn't be surprised if he started with either one of those, then maybe at some point just switches over to the system that maybe it will work better that way. So I don't know. That's a very good question. I'm really curious to see what Rod Brind'amour does, because he likes to change it up every so often. But either way, be kind of fun to keep an eye on that. And then Katie's second question was, if the Hurricanes go on to win the Stanley Cup, who are the three most likely candidates to earn the Conn Smythe, and why? Ooh, another great question. Man. I would say if he's playing the way he's had in the regular season since coming back, I could see Frederick Anderson being the second goalie ever for the Hurricanes, and the second time only for the Hurricanes to win the Conn Smythe, because we know Cam Ward did it when he won the cup, when the Hurricanes won the cup in 2006. He at the time had the goalie record for most playoff wins in a series for a rookie, and he won the Conn Smythe that year. And let's say Frederick Anderson comes out and plays out of his mind. Let's say he goes and wins the Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy as well, and comes out and goes and plays lights out in the playoffs like he did last year. Last year he had like a 1.36, 1.4 goals against, and a save percentage like in the 910 range. If he plays like that again, and just play, or even plays like he has in the last 10 games, if he's playing lights out hockey like he has been, has a sub 1.2 goals against, 930, 940 save percentage throughout the playoffs, and like maybe loses one or two games, if that, I can see Frederick Anderson winning the Conn Smythe, no issue for the Hurricanes. I could see him doing it. He'd be this. I mean, the Hurricanes go win 2 cups, and both of their Conn Smythe are goalies. I could see that. I could see the Hurricanes being that team that's like, okay, here's your first 2 Conn Smythes ever, and they're both goalies. That, I think that'd be kind of fun to see that happen. And that would be very Hurricanes-like to be like, yep, it's our goalie. Every time we go win a cup, it's a goalie. So I could definitely see Frederick Anderson doing it. I could even see Seth Jarvis doing it. Seth Jarvis scored 2 more goals on Sunday night against the Blackhawks to get his 32nd and his 33rd of the season. He's just playing great hockey. For the fact that he's in his 3rd season, the way he's been playing, 33 goals, 34 assists for 67 points in 81 games. The most goals he had in a season was 16. That was his rookie year. And that's he had 40 assists, and he had 40 points that year too. And the fact that you're looking at the last game of the season, he's at 67, and he's 3 points away from hitting 70. I could see him doing it. I could see him in the last game of the season against the Columbus Blue Jackets on Tuesday. I can see him doing it, where he gets 3 points and finishes it with 70, which would be phenomenal. For the fact that not even 2 games ago, he's sitting at like 62, 63. Now he's sitting at 60. I think he was sitting at 64, and now he's at 67. Very doable for him to hit 70. And the fact that he's got 33 goals and 34 assists, I can easily see him doing it. So if he plays like this, like he did in the play, as he's done all season, maybe if he does it again in the playoffs, I can see Seth Jarvis doing it. He's also a plus 23. That is second best on the team. And there's nothing more you can ask out of this guy. There's really nothing more. And on Tuesday's episode, I'm really going to dive in a little bit more into how Seth Jarvis has been this season for the Hurricanes. So make sure to tune in for the Tuesday episode. of Locked On Hurricanes. We'll do a little bit more of a deep dive on Seth Jarvis, but I would say he's another great option to go win the Conn Smythe if he plays in the playoffs like he has been in the regular season for his breakout year. This is a breakout season, especially in a year where you're having to wonder what type of contract the Hurricanes give him since he's a restricted free agent. Do you go for the bridge for 3 years, or do you give him that 7 or 8 year deal? But I would say a second option would be Seth Jarvis. And then, I mean, if you're talking about Seth Jarvis, I mean, there's no way you don't talk about this guy, and that's Sebastian Aho. 36 goals, got 1 denied on an empty netter, and 53 assists, 89 points. He's a plus 34. Like, he's a plus 34, and I think the record's a plus 35, and I think that was set by Eric Staal in a season. For the fact that he's 4 goals short of 40, he's 1 goal, he's 1 point from 90. Like, it's insane how great of a season that Sebastian Aho's had, where like his previous high for points was 83. He's 1 away from 90. And he's so close to hitting a record for a plus minus in one season. If the fact that Sebastian Aho didn't miss 3 games this season, when it's all said and done, I think he could have hit 100. I think he could have hit 100 if he didn't have a slow start to earlier in the season, during the West Coast road trip and how Canada went. He could have hit 100 this season. And the last person to do it was Eric Staal back in 2005-06 when they won the Cup. But I would not be surprised on Tuesday night that against the Jackets you see Sebastian Aho get 90, and I wouldn't be surprised if you get the Conn Smythe as well. So I would say if you're looking at 3 guys I would choose to possibly win the Conn Smythe if the Hurricanes win the whole thing, Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, and Frederick Anderson. But thank you to everyone who's sending your questions. Hopefully you do this more often. And the third segment is going to be, we're going to be talking about the potential playoff implications in terms of how is it going to work out with the New York Rangers and the Carolina Hurricanes, with the Rangers playing tonight on Monday and the Hurricanes playing tomorrow on Tuesday. We'll get that to you here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Regardless of where we are in the current standings, I want to remind you that you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. And the great thing about the app is, too, entries can be made in under a minute. All you have to do is pick rather studs like Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis, maybe. Will record more or less than their Sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. To win a 100-time bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Hurricanes fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and local availability. Welcome back to the third segment of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. So before we wrap up the show, there is going to be, the playoffs are coming down to the wire. There's 1 game left for the Hurricanes. There's 1 game left for the Rangers, and the Hurricanes are exactly 1 point behind the New York Rangers, and it's a very huge one in terms of depending on how the Rangers game comes out and how the Hurricanes play on Tuesday, the Carolina Hurricanes in the last game of the season have the potential to win the Metro and take the President's Trophy. So as it stands right now, the New York Rangers on Monday night play the Ottawa Senators at 7:30 p.m. So tonight, it's the Rangers hosting the Ottawa Senators. With Ottawa's playing, I think it's going to be tough, but who knows? Anything can really happen. Anything can happen. I could see some miracle happening where the Senators somehow do beat the Rangers, and it leaves the door wide open for the Hurricanes. And as it stands right now, if the New York Rangers beat the Ottawa Senators on Monday night, they will win the Metro and the President's Trophy. And at that point, the Hurricanes take the second Metro spot, and then you're looking at either the New York Islanders or the Pittsburgh Penguins or however else that comes out to for the third Metro spot. So I guess we'll see how that if that's the case. However, if the New York Rangers lose in overtime / the shootout, and if Carolina wins, that would give the Hurricanes the Metro and the President's Trophy. If the Hurricanes somehow win in regulation, and if the New York Rangers lose in an overtime or the shootout. But if the Rangers lose in regulation and Carolina earns at least 1 point, the Hurricanes take the Metro, but they won't take the President's Trophy. So it's in the fact that with the last scenario, it could end up a few different ways as far as when you're looking at the top seed. If it plays out to the fact that if the Rangers lose in regulation, but the Hurricanes only take a point, then you're looking at how the other teams do in the East for the potential number 1 seed and all that stuff. So it really just depends. So it could be interesting to see how all that plays out. But if you ask me, I would take the second option, where if the Rangers lose at least in overtime or the shootout, or just lose in general, and the Hurricanes win, then they win the Metro, they win the Presidents, they lock it up. It's a win. If the Rangers lose in regulation and overtime, then all you need to do is win. You win and you get the trophy, you get the number 1 seed. You're done. You're good. You've got home ice advantage to the playoffs. You're taking whoever is in the wild card 2 spot. The third option wouldn't be bad either, but then it really comes down to the other games. How does it come down to Florida? How does it come out to Boston and stuff like that? Because then you're potentially looking at playing Tampa Bay in the first round, because Tampa Bay holds the number 1 wild card spot. And if you don't get the number 1 seed in the East, then you're playing Tampa. So there's a lot of, you're relying on other teams to do certain things for you to get the number 1 seed in the East. If the Hurricanes earn at least a point and the Rangers lose in regulation, there's a lot of other factors. But the second option is the best one for the Hurricanes. Rangers lose in overtime or a shootout, or just lose in regulation, and the Hurricanes win their game on Tuesday night against the Blue Jackets in Columbus. You win. It's done. You've locked it up. You've locked up the Metro for your 4th straight division title, your 3rd straight Metro division title, and you get the President's Trophy for the first time ever in franchise history, and you lock up the number 1 seed through the entire playoffs, home ice advantage to the whole thing, and you go and get the number 2 wild card spot. So that's kind of what we're looking at in terms of the implications for the playoffs. So Monday night, there's going to be a lot of Hurricanes fans hoping the Ottawa Senators do their thing and shock the Rangers. And then on Tuesday night, Hurricanes go do their thing in Columbus and hopefully take the whole kit caboodle for the Eastern Conference and the Metro Division this season. But that'll wrap up this show. Make sure to come back for Tuesday. We're going to do a little bit more of a deep dive on Seth Jarvis and just how he's been for the Carolina Hurricanes, and also previewing Tuesday night's game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. If you want to find me, you can find me at OneTrueZach on Twitter. That's only TrueZach. It's actually spelled out. It's not the number itself. You can find the podcast at LO_Hurricanes on Twitter as well. And there you can find where to watch the show and where to listen to us. We're on all podcast platforms. And if you are on the YouTube version, to make sure to please do subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you don't miss any new episode when it drops. And also drop a like. I would really appreciate that. It would help us out here at the show. And leave some comments down below. You know, who do you think should win the President's Trophy? Obviously, you want the Hurricanes to do it, but how would you want them to do it? And then who do you think should win the Conn Smythe if the Hurricanes do win it? And who do you want to see them play in the first round as well? Because why not? Why not do that? And make sure and share the show with all your friends, all their fellow Caniacs, and every other person you think could be an everydayer just like you. So make sure you're going to do all that. Make sure that in the link tree that I have in my personal bio on Twitter or Instagram, go check that out, because where you can find me on all my writings at the Hockey Writers, where I cover the Carolina Hurricanes and do the Substacks over there too. We got premium Substacks if you want to subscribe to that. and then also the free newsletters and all the other stuff that I do for the writing over there. And then you can check out all the other places where I write articles and my other podcast that I do called the Searchcast, where it's also another Hurricanes show where it's a more long formatted once a week type show. They're on YouTube as well. And then you can find this on YouTube and on podcast platforms as well. But until tomorrow for a Tuesday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, once again, this is Zach. Thank you, the everydayer, for making this your first listen of the day. And until then, see you next time on Locked On Hurricanes. And of course, as always, let's go Canes.